Take it away, Kath.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Heath, and I work for the Children's Bureau. At the Children's Bureau, I'm the Foster Care Independence Program Specialist, so anything regarding the Chafee Foster Care Program, the Education Training Voucher Program, or anything that has the word youth in it is generally in the responsibility of my portfolio. So I want to thank Karen for talking a little bit about the intervention model. I'm going to talk about that again in a minute, but I think we've had several references made to the Extended Foster Care Program. Next slide, please. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I do see this as an opportunity for us to start thinking about how do we collect data and information about how we design programs that meet the needs of young people who are legally adults but yet are still receiving services from us in a very unique way. So unlike the traditional foster care system, youth who are receiving services in a state that's opted into providing foster care must be meeting one of the program requirements. That includes completing secondary, post-secondary, participating in a program that's designed to remove barriers to employment, working 80 hours a month, or is incapable of doing any of those because of some sort of medical disability. That creates a very different type of program than just being in the foster care system because you're under the age of 18. And states have had a lot of flexibility in how they've designed this program, how they've certified that the young people are meeting the eligibility criteria. In addition, the young person is under the supervision of the state. And in many cases, that means there's a caseworker who's coming to their home once a month, there's court hearings that are happening. It's a very different way of interacting and being involved in the system. Next slide, please. So Karen said that her slide had a lot of information on it. I think this one wins. And I would always urge you guys to go to the National Resource Center for Youth Development. The website is up on top. We try and keep that information as current as possible. Of the states that have applied for and have been approved to operate a federally funded program after the age of 18, many states continue to operate a program after the age of 18 that they pay for with state dollars. But these are the states that are receiving federal reimbursement and therefore are responsible for having responsible for meeting the program requirements. Thank you, Mark. And as you can see, states have the option of what age to offer the program to, what conditions they are able to offer, what conditions young people must be meeting in order to be part of the program, and the date that it started. These programs that are operated across the country are very different. They have very different models. In some cases, a young person at 18, their child welfare case is closed and they sign a voluntary placement agreement. And in that agreement, they sign and agree to conditions and agree to have a caseworker come out to their home once a month. Others, you automatically remain eligible for the program until the age of 21. You actually have to do a lot of work to get out of that program. We know very little about how these programs are meeting the needs of these young people. There's a lot of ideas out there at this point, but this program was started in 2010 and is a relatively new program. So I think we have a lot to think about. How do we even start collecting the data that we need in order to really inform what program models work for what young people and what program models need to continue to be improved in order to meet the needs of these young people in transition. So one of the other things that we've done at the Children's Bureau, in addition to encouraging states to opt into providing federal foster care after the age of 18, is to offer a group of planning grants to actually use the intervention model that was developed and start thinking about how do we think about the most at-risk young people who have involvement with the child welfare system. So last summer we awarded 18 24-month planning grants. These were an annual award of $360,000. 18 were awarded, and eligible applicants were state and county governments, child welfare agencies, and private organizations, and these applications were due on July 22nd. So I think all of our grants are actually in the room and are participating in the meeting today. As you can see from the list of who was awarded, we have a wide variety of child welfare agencies, private organizations, and small county child welfare agencies, and one Indian tribe. This, I think, is a unique way to give a group of very diverse community organizations and state agencies a way to start thinking about how do you target services. So for example, if you started to operate a federal foster care program after the age of 18, how does that mean you spend your Chafee dollars? If you're no longer having to use those Chafee dollars to provide room and board room and board supports for the majority of your young people that you traditionally did, how do you then realign that dollars to be able to create a framework that assists young people and then target the ones that are the most at risk of homelessness? As we said in the funding announcement, we do recognize that foster care and homelessness has a strong relationship. And because of that, we determined that there are 3 critical intervention points that the grantees must be targeting. The first one is thinking about those adolescents who enter foster care between the ages of 14 and 17. These young people have very different needs than a 3-year-old who enters the child welfare system. And if you think about what's happening with permanency, while we want every child to have permanency, the likelihood that an older adolescent in the foster care system is going to be able to get to that point to be able to have legal permanency is probably a little bit more difficult for the child welfare system actually complete. So how do you think about those services being different than the services that you provide an 8-year-old? The other population is young adults aging out of the foster care system. We all know the link, and was presented this morning, the link between aging out of foster care and the potential for being at risk of homelessness. And then the third population that we know very little about are homeless youth young adults with foster care histories up to the age of 21. So this would be the 8-year-old who was placed with grandma at age 15, may have run away from grandma's placement. They're not in the child welfare system, but they have this child welfare history and they show up in our shelters. And in this grant, we're asking their grants to really think about this as 2 different populations. Those young people who are under the age of 18, and then those who are older than the age of 18. Because in most cases, just because you are in a homeless shelter doesn't mean you need to enter the child welfare system if you're under the age of 18. But what services and supports can that child welfare system offer that is meaningful to help that young person on the trajectory towards self-sufficiency? An exciting part about the planning grant work is that this is 2 phases of work. The first one is the 24-month planning phase, and then in phase 2, we will have a second competition, and we will have applicants complete to get funding for implementation, which will be over 5 years. So during the phase 1, grantees are going to be developing their implementation plans and an evaluation plan. So if they were to receive the implementation funding, that they would have an evaluation that would be part of that work. So we can actually see how the young people are faring using the framework of the intervention model. And another really important thing is that we do have a technical assistance contract that's tied to the grants. We will be doing a process evaluation, and I think Maria is going to be talking about that in a little bit about some of the work that we're doing in our evaluation. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria.